You just got another rejection email. And it says the same thing. It seems to say the same thing over and over and over again. And you just want to know what the heck that rejection feedback really means. Well, I'm going to break it down for you today based off of my 15 years of experience in talent acquisition, where I conducted over 10,000 interviews. So I knew what that feedback really meant when we said no to you. And I'm going through the 4 most common phrases that we hear and what it could actually mean and what you can do about it. So stay tuned. Hello, hey everybody. I am Sarah Curto, and I am a certified career and leadership coach who helps unhappy employees and workers find their dream jobs or get their next promotions so that they can work less, make more money, and finally feel fulfilled, happy, like they're making the impact they're meant to be making, doing work that they love. So I come here to this YouTube channel every week to drop a new training. So I don't want you to miss a single one because we talk about it all. We talk career development, job searches, interviews, resumes, promotions, like every little itty bitty thing. And I come at it from a very different perspective. I think obviously because I have those 15 years of HR experience, but also because I started my career in mental health counseling and have a degree in psychology. So I also feel I come at it from a very, very humanistic perspective. And I just want to bring the humans, like the humanness back into the job search, to the workplace, because at the end of the day, so what I see is that we see a lot of advice that essentially is trying to make you a robot. And the thing is robots don't get hired. People get hired. Like they would just create an AI if they didn't want to hire an actual person. And you notice that, like, you're so stressed about how to perceive or how others will perceive you during the whole hiring process. But then when you are working there, you're like, oh, we're just like normal people. So let's just be normal people throughout the whole process. Okay, like spiel over. But anyway, as I go through this, I want you to let me know in the comments what kind of rejections that you got, especially if I have not said it, so I can tell you what that really means. Tell me what you think about my thoughts on this rejection. If you have gotten it and you can see what I'm saying, then let me know in the comments section. Hit like to let me know you're here. Oh, and tell me where you're watching from. I'm so intrigued to know where you all are from. I'm from Canada, just outside of Toronto in Ontario. Okay, let's get to it. What your rejection feedback really means. Number 1, this is the worst one. You're too overqualified. And sometimes they add on like, we're afraid you're gonna get bored kind of thing. So when they tell you you're too overqualified, there are usually 2 big things that they're worried about. This could be a couple others. The first one is that you are a flight risk. So this is if you are taking a step back in your career, or maybe you have spent a long time with an organization. That's sort of a different thing. But if you're taking a step back and they're saying you're too overqualified, they think you're going to leave. They think if you're a manager who's now wants to be an individual contributor or a director to manager, whatever it is, they're going to think you're going to join, and in 6 months you will get bored, and so then you will take that director or manager or that position that you most recently had. So if you do really want to take a step back, then you need to ensure that your interview answers showcase why and that willingness, and that this is like the director level is a door you're closing. This is not something you're just doing because of the economy, or not something you're doing just because you got burnt out. Like you're done with that chapter. It was not the right fit. Because the other thing that they really mean with that too overqualified is you're too expensive. So if you're a VP that now wants to be a director, they're thinking, I can't afford you. You're going to want too much money. So part of that willingness to take a step back is you're all in. You're all in, even if it means less money, because this is the right move for you. Not because you're being forced to make the move, because it's the right move. So even if you feel like you're being a little forced to, because this is common during recessions for people to want to take this step back because there aren't as many jobs, you need to get to a place in your mindset where I'm doing this because this is the best move for me. Even if it's temporary, but again, like we're long temporary, because we kind of need to keep that out of our heads a bit, so that when we're answering stories or answering questions with our stories, it comes across as like very settled and grounded and confident that this is the way forward for you, that it's going to be exciting, that it's going to be challenging, but that you also don't need all that money. Okay, what it can also mean is ageism. Like plain and simple, if you've been working in the same job for like 10, 15 years and you're not taking a step back, but we're hearing a lot of you're too overqualified, what that is ageism. And when they're thinking about ageism, some of the feedback that the recruiter, like HR, hears is that they're afraid that you can't learn, or that you can't fit in with your coworkers, or that you're technically wise, not savvy enough. So you want to make sure that in your interview answers that you're highlighting stories that combat those things. So meaning you can learn quickly, you can get along with people, and that you are well versed in current technologies. That is how to actually not get that too overqualified, because that's what that too overqualified means, because they can't tell you those other things. So that's the too overqualified, which is one of the most common rejection feedbacks we hear. Okay, the other most common is we went internal, which is the absolute worst. Like, why the hell are they interviewing externally? At the organizations I worked with, we did an internal search first, and then if we couldn't do that, then we would go internal. And if we were doing internal and external at the same time, it was because we were going to go external. So I think I appreciate my organizations that did that, because I hate when they're wasting people's time. But what they really need is they need someone to hit the ground running. And they need someone who can do the job with very little training. Like, that's usually why, if they're interviewing internal and external candidates at the same time, and why they go internal, it's not because they were better, it's not because of anything, it's because they need to hit the ground running. So to me, that's like a dodged bullet, because you need adequate onboarding and training in order to do the job. So, and to be set up for success. Now, how to see if this is happening is during the interview process. One of your questions can be, are you interviewing internal and external candidates? And what are the things you're really looking for? And then that way you can recuse yourself if you want, but at least you'll have an understanding going through the rest, that if they say one of our key criteria is we need someone who can hit the ground running, or to ramp up very quickly, or to accomplish things in a very short period of time, you'll kind of know then that they will favor the internal. And if you still really want this job, then you need to showcase your ability to do that, where you have entered a new company in a new position and have really done a lot with a little bit of support. Okay. Another common feedback that we get when in our rejection letters is we went with someone who had more experience. And this is specifically, so if you're underqualified and you're like actually underqualified, there is little we can do about it in these instances. There are certain things where we can showcase where we have done the work, even if we haven't been paid to do the work. Like, that is sort of something different. But what I really want to focus on here is when you get this, but you've had lots of experience. So it's kind of like them saying you're overqualified, but you're not overqualified. And this is them saying you're underqualified, but you're not underqualified. So this is what happens is your interview answers were not detailed enough. In all likelihood, if I were to hear you do some of your interview answers, you would be missing the actions piece. So you would probably be given a lot of context or the background. You maybe even be given the result, but you're missing the steps you take from going from the background to the result, which is those actions. And what an interviewer sees is that, oh, I don't know how involved they were in this. So maybe they like saw other people doing it, but I don't know if they were really involved in it. So that becomes the issue. And this is common. So here's the thing. So don't beat yourself up over this. If you've been doing a job for a long time, it's hard to break it down step by step. Think about trying to explain to someone how to brush their teeth. And by you walking through how you brush your teeth. You have to really stop and think about all of the little things that you do. So I encourage you, if you are looking for a new role that is a lateral role and you are looking to be interviewing, to start thinking about your duties and responsibilities that you hope to carry with you to the next job, and think about the step by step of what you do, so that when you're in an interview, you can provide them all of those actions so that we do not get this feedback. So when they say you're underqualified, that's what I want you to do. Okay, the last piece of rejection feedback that we tend to see that really means something else is we went with someone who was a better fit for our culture or maybe for our team dynamics. We're talking about where they couldn't see you working with them. And there are two things that this indicates. One is you did not show up to the interview. A version of you showed up to the interview. So there's a caveat. I'm my brain jumped, but I'll get to the caveat. So this is where you were too focused on your interview answers. You were wanting to be that robot. You were kind of coming up with that perfect answer, and so you weren't present in the room. This is where they didn't feel any chemistry, so they couldn't see them working with you. This could also be where your answers to the soft skill questions were weak. So again, maybe those action pieces were missing. Maybe they didn't see your ability to problem solve or to effectively communicate. So this could be some of those issues. Now, the caveat is sometimes you are not a fit. Sometimes you ask a question tell me more about hybrid, and they only want full-time, full in the office. And then they reject you because you're not a fit in terms of that culture. If they have a hustle culture and you don't want to hustle, then you don't want that job anyway. So we don't care. We don't worry about that. But if it's because you're not showing up to the interview because you are in your head too much, then I want you to work on that. And I want you to work on building a relationship and a connection with the individual. Okay, now the other thing is this could be an ism. So this could be racism, it could be ageism, it could be fat phobia, it could be sexism, it could be any of those showing up. Where this, and I would see this all of the time, unfortunately, and this is the sort of feedback that we would hear from hiring managers when they couldn't picture you in the role, and because one of their implicit biases, so they don't know this is happening, is preventing them from seeing anyone but themselves in the role. So there's not much you can do about this. And there's not even much you can do to figure out if discrimination happened. We can't go to a lawyer and try and sue them, unfortunately, for unlawful hiring practices, because it's almost impossible to prove, number one. And number two, we don't want to work at these places, and it's up to HR and this individual to work on this. It is not up to you, which doesn't help when you don't get the job. But there are a lot of other organizations out there that don't have the isms. And that's the thing with rejection feedback is, unfortunately, Some of these common rejection feedback is a mask for these implicit biases. And I wish I could just pretend that that doesn't happen, but I can't because I was in the job for 15 years. And I would hear it and I would have to probe and push back and try and get them to see something different, and break down those biases. But like, it's up to them. And like, I also don't think you want to work with someone who doesn't see your value, who someone has to convince that this person is valuable. Like, you're not going to be set up for success there. There's so many other organizations and people out there who can see the value in you. And that's where we really want to be focusing our energy rather than convincing people that we are valuable. But there are things we can do with these feedback. So when you think back to, just as an overview, when we're talking about being too overqualified, we can address some of their concerns about why they think we're overqualified, like that we're not a flight risk, or that we're not too old. So meaning we can learn, we can get along with people, we can learn technology and use technology. With the internal stuff, we can figure out ahead of time in the interview process, so that we get to the end, we can at least have a fighting chance if we want to enter that sort of culture in that position. If they say you're underqualified, we can look at our interview answers so that we can really pump up on those actions so that they don't see that anymore. And if we are not ourselves showing up to an interview, we can show up for an interview so that they can see us as a fit for their team, their culture, their organization. Okay, that was a doozy. It was a long one, a little soapboxy, a little heavy, a little light, lots of stuff you can do. Let me know below what your thoughts are. And I will see you next week. So make sure you subscribe so you don't miss it for another training. Take care. Bye. If you liked this video, then I invite you to join me in the Find Your Dream Job program, where you work less, make more money, and finally feel fulfilled doing work that you love. Find out more at www.sarahcurto.ca/CYLA. See you there.